Hey there, so today we have another review. This is another pizza beer, which is a tavern cut. And this is cold pizza from Hot Butcher for the World. Thank you so much from Jeremiah for Hot Butcher. 2 weeks old. And so this is an interesting one. This is Citra and Vic Secret, so same as Tavern Cut. But this is cold IPA. This is all 6% versus 7.5. So what is cold IPA? It's one of those things that really hasn't, I don't think, like gotten popular like brut IPA, but from where I stand, it is sort of a cool fermented ale IPA. So we're talking in the range of IPL, right? You have like cooler temperatures. So instead of using a lager strain is going to be fermented at cooler temperatures. Using ale strain, but you're sort of pressing down the fermentation characteristics with a cooler temperature fermentation. Which also makes a lot of sense because I remember listening to a podcast, and German is such a language that like makes a lot of sense. And so in our language, dry hopping makes no sense. I mean, the reason could logically kind of explain it to me, but dry hopping is really cool hopping, right? You sort of have kettle hops in the boil, which are really hot hops, like they're boiled, and then you're adding dry hops during cooler temperatures, during or after fermentation. And that's cool hopping. So in German, it's, I don't know the word for it, but it's cool hopped. For us, we call it dry hopping, which again, doing multiple brewery tours and explaining all this stuff to people like talking about the brewing process, it really makes no sense. But really, dry hopping is cool hopping. You're adding hops at a cooler temperature towards the end of fermentation, right? Or after fermentation. So this is a cold IPA. So let's get into it. Yeah. So that's sort of like in the range of like what you do with a Kolsch. It's an ale strain fermented at cooler temperatures. So crystal clear, very nice. Comes in a light gold color, not as fluffy head obviously as a New England IPA. Yeah, looks quite nice. Like bright clarity on that though, right? Yeah, clear as hell. So I get all the neck edge. I get some like really ragged edges on it. It's like weed. It's vegetal. It's almost stinky. Almost like soily, like pot soil. The really dark black stuff with like those white dots stuff in it, right? Yeah, and then nice malt more. It's more that kind of sense of like rich density. It's all that dankage to it. Real bold, grassy, vegetal. It really smells like ripping herbs and grass out of the soil. Yeah. And it's got a greenery to it too. It smells awesome though. Cheers. So that's what cold IPA is. It tastes like IPL. It's a cool fermented, low fermentation characteristic beer. You tell me this is India Pale Lager. Yeah, it tastes like Jack's Abbey. It's been years since I've had those beers. Those beers were popular at one point, but now they're really more popular for their lagers, at least one from what I understand. Those beers can be distinguished, I think, generally with like a West Coast IPA. This is a very clean beer. It's very light. It's bitter and herby up front. There's no sense for me that it had Citra and Vic Secret. It's more that kind of like Columbus, Simcoe. Yeah, those tones to it. Yeah, it's like fully restrained of any like fruit characteristics. It's really just those green, grassy notes. It's just like lightly bitter. So it is a very clean beer. So it doesn't really have the crystal malt or the malt attack to really have a strong bitterness behind it. But this is a solidly bitter beer, medium bitterness, very crisp. But it is also like, how do you describe this? It's like a watery-ish IPL. Well, IPLs are watery, right? Like they're lager-ish. So it's a hoppy lager. It's a IPL. I try to like dance around myself with it, but it's an IPL. I think for you guys, is the best way to sort of like message what I'm trying to say, what it tastes like. It's a hoppy IPL. Yeah. And that's what cold IPA is, right? You're just like, instead of using lager yeast, you're just like cold fermenting it, but then also you're not pulling all those like really rich, high protein grains in there. So it's like, wheat and malts, all that cloudy stuff. And then I assume it's mostly just a good amount of like kettle bittering, and then not like putting the insane amounts of hops that you do with a New England IPA. So it's a nice kind of like bitterish, grassy, herbal, piney kind of construction to a really light drinkable beer. It's a nice break, like New England IPAs, you don't want to have like, I would say like you have a couple and like, man, you really have to take a break. You're like, this breaks up really. It's a drastic difference of hoppiness, because I feel there's some amount of malt structure with a West Coast IPA or like Sierra Nevada. We're talking about like some amount of like, like amberness to the beer. This is light to medium gold color at most, right? So you're getting the, New England chunky, fruity, and then you get something really nice, crisp and bitter and nice without any sweetness behind it. Because like, New England IPA has a sweetness, and there is some backbone of sweetness of malt with the West Coast IPAs. This is all just like clean, cut, dry, razor sharp kind of beer. So sort of like, this is the world of like, if you like crushable and drinkable, but you also want some hoppiness. That's what is in the glass. So their notes are orange zest. I don't get any fruitiness off this one. Dried mango. Juicy pineapple. No. This is the first one that I fully disagree with. I think you're stretching to pull those notes. The big notes for me are just those like herbal dank tones. This is just a base tone kind of beer, right? Sometimes you build IPAs and kind of like beers with like base tones, and then you get these fruity higher notes, and you get like more structure. This is all base tone for me, mostly. It's got this flat kind of like layering, like it's, like base, like it's got a nice sitting kind of flavor, whereas, you get these peaks of like boom, pine, citrus, and pineapple, New England IPA, boom, boom, boom. Like it's bright and hits you, but and those beers sometimes do have a nice bittering kind of base tone to it. Nothing here for me, just really like pops, which is not a bad thing. It's just mostly like the pop is maybe. I'm trying to search for what they're talking about. Sometimes confirmation bias helps, but there's like a hint of something that's like, sneaking in there. But for me, this is like drinking, right? Like when you drink a lager or a pilsner, there's no like bright tones. It's a base tone of like certain like sitting hops, just like playing around there with the malt and lager yeast, blah, blah. This is in that range. It definitely has more bitterness. It definitely has more hop expression, but it's those kind of like green, brown flavors dancing around there with a really clean beer. Wow. I'm really curious what the grist bill looks like here, because it is like skinny. It's a skinny beer. And then it has those hops just like playing with that quite nicely. So, cold IPA. Wow. Post in comments below if you know about the style, if you have any local breweries doing it, because this is pretty much a thing that I don't know about other than like a few breweries. And I mean, I've only heard about it from the Pacific Northwest, but I guess Hop Butcher's trying it as well. This beer for me is quite tasty. I like the break of it. You just served this to me and didn't tell me about the process, cold IPA, IPL, blah, blah, blah. What is it? It's a crisp, really drinkable, dry IPA. No fermentation characteristics, no kind of crystal malt to it. It's a modern crisp IPA with no citrusy either. I personally prefer more of that fruity character, and I would never in my life guess there's a Citra and Vic Secret in here. I really wish there was more like fruit, because there's all those like green basey tones to it. Idiot. It's well constructed, delicious, easy drinking. I've crushed a pint of this, no problem. 90. 90, crush it. Yeah, if it could crush a pint, yeah, 90. 90, cold pizza. It's just a crushable, delicious beer, but I just wish there was just more to it. A little bit more. So, cold pizza. Until next time, guys. Cheers. Thank you.